Hi, well, my name is Juan Carlos Portillo, and I'm currently a missionary in Guatemala, born and raised in northern Mexico, a bicultural home with a British mother and a Mexican father. So we're part of a mission aviation fellowship. I'm a pilot mechanic. We use aviation to reach remote areas of the world. Yeah, we've served in Mexico, Guatemala, and Suriname in South America. 21 years, almost 22 years in the ministry. I think apart from the Bible, the single media thing, which in my days was books, a book that came to my hands was called Jungle Pilot, The Life and Witness of Nate Saint by Russell T. Hitt. So it's a biography of Nate Saint, one of the pioneer missionary pilots with MAF down in southern Mexico and then in Ecuador. And he was martyred along with other four more missionaries that were trying to reach an indigenous group in the Amazonian jungle back in 1956. With a group of Air Force pilot friends, they thought that using aviation for God's kingdom was a great tool since they had seen how effective aviation was during the war and how important it was. And when they came back, they wanted to use those skills to serve God and serve others. And that's how MAF got started right after the war ended. So yeah, that's the book that kind of gave heading to my life, really caught my attention, and that's how I felt like God was calling me to serve Him for this type of ministry. I was liked aviation. I kind of liked taking things apart and trying to figure out how they worked. So I thought that would be a good way to use my interests and my skills to serve God. But yeah, I mean, this was a real life story of a real life person that serve God with technical skills. I mean, you always think of serving God by being a pastor or evangelist. Or when I saw that we could serve God with a technical set of skills, I said, "Man, this is for me. I think I can do that." I didn't see myself as a pastor or evangelist, so this opened my view to the much wider way of doing ministry, of helping others and showing God's love in a practical way. I was finishing elementary. I was probably between fifth and sixth grade. So yeah, I was probably 12 years old. So I heard his stories of all that was happening in southern Mexico and how aviation was key to reach some of the most difficult places to access in Oaxaca. And then I read the book and all those things pieced together and have planted the seed for me to become a missionary pilot in the future. At that age, I would probably do most of my reading in my bedroom or in my parents' bedroom, laying on the bed. That was the place I could stay away from my four sisters. I have four sisters, and I was the only boy. And so I would go to my corner and read a book or take a toy apart and try to figure how it worked and put it back together. And my escape, my silence was reading some of those books. Yeah, I mean, in some ways I do. I mean, the purpose of the flying is the same. The world has changed a lot since 1956. So a lot of what we do is very different in many ways because, I mean, in the 50s, even though technology and airplanes and aviation and in general has evolved and changed and matured, the purpose is still the same to show God's love in a practical way. And so yeah, I identify in some ways, but definitely it's not the same type of flying, the same type of ministry that we had back then. When I was in high school, peer pressure in the big city where I work, you kind of had to go to college, get a degree to be somebody. I was being pulled away from this idea that I had when I was 12 or 13. I was kind of struggling with that. Should I serve God or should I make something of myself by going to college? For me, I guess what made the difference was that my grandparents came to visit from England, and they wanted to go to Guatemala to visit my sister in Bible school. And interestingly enough, in Guatemala, there were several pilots. One of them was the founder of MAF program here in Guatemala. Long story short, I ended up staying in Guatemala at the Bible school. So that was God using that, taking me out of my comfort place where the peer pressure was influencing me in a different direction, and staying in Guatemala, going to Bible school, been surrounded by several pilots that rekindled this idea that I had been having. This is the way I think God confirmed the calling in different ways. That's a lot of times when I've been discouraged or whatever, when I go back and think how everything happened, and that was what's has kept me going, I guess, in going through the difficult times and staying faithful to the calling.